Okay, you're live.
Some folks who haven't arrived, they're coming late. Two people.
Microphones on, please. Microphones on, please. Thank
We'll
you.
start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Nice. Thanks, Karen. Stop? Okay. All right, let's go through the agenda. I have the roll taken already. Let's go to our first real order of business, and that's to introduce our new member. Martin, would you mind giving us a little summary of who you are and where you came from and what you're all about?
Sure. I'm living outside of Boston for about 30% of the time right now, down here about 70%. Retired from Thermo Fisher Scientific, which is a large company in the healthcare space.
Yeah.
I was there for 12 years and was responsible for executive compensation there. So I helped the board to decide how much money the CEO made, and then I helped the CEO to decide how much money the other 400 executives.
And who decides how much you make?
The CEO.
Okay.
It was very rewarding. The company grew quite a bit while I was there, from being worth $16 billion to $260 billion by the time that I retired. And I'm very fortunate that I was a part of that, what made that happen.
Yeah,
Worked
great.
very, very closely with the board.
Fisher Scientific?
Thermo Fisher.
Thermo Fisher, yeah.
Bought here in 2018 over on Congress Street. Absolutely love it. We spent about 2 years on design, permitting, and finding a builder. And just about a little over 2 years now, the contractors are supposed to finally be done with everything in a week or so. So
Long process.
it has been. Trying to build a house during COVID was definitely rebuild a house during COVID.
So were you living, were you living there? Were you
Yes.
able to live? You were able to live there?
Yeah. We got the CO end of last July. I have a detached garage and then landscaping that we've been doing more recently than that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, love it here, absolutely love it. Think the city is in a great place. Think the future is extremely bright. The way I look at it is every day it gets a little bit better because there's so many projects going on around town that all those properties are being made better.
They are, they really are.
So Dennis, how did you guys connect as far as MTRAC was concerned?
Well, I had put your name in to be on the parking committee because, remember the last time we met?
Right.
The city said we want the parking committee and the MTRAC committee to work on the issue.
Right.
And so the mayor asked me to find some folks, and I went through my files and looked at names and who was involved in what, and came up with Martin's name, came up with Dave's name, too.
Oh, there you go. Recruiting.
Yeah.
That's great. Were you coming to KMA before? I mean,
We
you didn't just,
vacationed here occasionally. We came down here a couple of times in the early 2000s when my son was younger from Connecticut. I lived outside Hartford at the time.
Yeah.
Little more manageable trip. Once you're outside Boston, it's about 5.5 hours.
Yeah.
Takes my wife 6 hours, but,
that's when we started coming. We were in Glastonbury when we lived there. We lived in Hartford, too.
oh, okay, sure. Just on occasion came down here and said, this is where I want to retire to. So we will be here for the rest of our lives.
Excellent.
And really, really, truly enjoy the city.
That's great.
The city's got a good future.
The winters here, actually, if you're the kind to stick around all winter long, I don't know if you do or not, but I think it's the best.
Yeah, I'm here year-round. I just have to go home occasionally because I have another house to take care of. But I love January, February. It was crowded in the city last January, February. I can always tell if they're parked in front of my house in the wintertime, the city's
You know,
crowded.
it's
100 Congress?
329, it's on the corner of Claghorn.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah, on that house, they've been working on that house for a while.
But it came out great.
Yeah,
And we just love it. Thank you.
Okay, good. Welcome to the committee. You're a year and a half behind schedule, so you got a lot of work to do. All right, let's go to the first thing. At the council meeting the other night, the CFO gave a presentation of revenue, and I sent you a one-pager,
Yep, saw it.
which is occupancy tax. This is here. And what that shows is, these were projections I had made in the beginning of the summertime, and the one projection is actually, I was off by $1,000.
You really suck.
We are live, you know.
It's okay, you're still allowed to say it.
I'll put the 1,000, we may be over for all, so it might wash out, but that's what it's looking at. And it's gonna come to a nice piece of change before we're finished.
Is this, my only question on this, was this inclusive of the VRBOs?
Yes, it is.
It is, okay.
Yeah, now here's, I did a runoff on this because I just took that number for July, 786. This is from the state. Now, the city's running into some problems getting detailed reports about how much money. We have totals, but we want to break that down and go into a little deeper. Where's the money coming from? So we're now working with the state and with the other VROB companies to find out exactly how many dollars are coming to us through the state from those new places. And so far, we've found that there's 5 agencies that are Airbnb types. Mm-hmm. And we don't know exactly how much money is coming from each of them, but we know it's a big part of the increase.
Well, yeah, except the 1% on
Well, the
hotels.
VROBs are 3%.
No, I'm sorry, but the 1% was still,
Yeah, that's all. And we've got, I think it's 76 businesses, which are either hotels, motels, or B&Bs. And they're kicking in the extra 1%.
right, but didn't we estimate that to be about $750,000?
Yes, yeah, right.
So the Airbnbs are another, almost double that, right?
Yeah, it's almost double that, yes. Well, actually over double that,
Okay.
yeah. And we'll know better when we can find out those numbers. But it came out as, just almost as we said it would come out. All right? So that's good. Now, when Neil presented to the council the budget, he made 3 points, and he gave us a good kudo for 3 of them. One of them was the occupancy tax, which is big. The other was that they are shifting expenditures from the utilities. They're transferring the revenue to support those from the general fund to the utilities. And that's something we had recommended they be doing a lot more of, and they are doing a lot more of it. I don't know if I can get through this meeting. I'm having trouble speaking, but I got laryngitis.
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah, got a head cold.
Just tell me you don't have COVID, that's all.
I don't have COVID. I don't have. Okay, so the 2 things he featured in his presentation, well, 3 things, were the occupancy tax, the transfer of spending and revenue over to utilities, and then the third thing was the short-term rental, and I gave you a copy of that. I walked the council through this presentation the other night to show them what we know so far about how the short-term rental market is working out. And we suggested that there's 3 basic core elements of that ordinance: the changing the fee structure from type to size.
Right.
The requirement that they look at the numbers annually to make changes when necessary. And thirdly, to define the market inventory, which is the biggest problem so far. Because when you're looking at the numbers from previous years, 2019 was a pre-COVID year. We had 513 residential rental licenses issued. Then the COVID came and it was dropped off a little bit. But then last year, it was almost, well, it was a 100% increase on the licensing fees, which is great. Then we shifted to the new type, which is not the kind of building, but the size of the building. And those numbers are on page 7. Or slide 7, I'm sorry.
Slide 7,
Slide 7 on page 4.
okay.
So if you look at, what I did was I grabbed all of the, I grabbed the spreadsheets from Aaron's office, clerk's office, for all the residential licenses issued, and she did an excellent job and her staff, of transferring it into a database which we can sort and move around and understand how it works together. It's an Excel spreadsheet. They were doing it by hand prior to this. So they went to the new system, and these numbers pretty much jump right out at you. If you look at the 6 different kinds of licenses that were issued, ranging in size from under 1,000 to over 5,000, the number of mercantile licenses issued is listed there in that column. You can see that the under 1,000 and under 2,000 are the predominance of the residential rental market in the city. Now, what needs to be said there is that of this 1,040 licenses, and that's a nice increase too, even over last year, of those licenses issued, you can see that there's a bit of a disparity among the kinds of properties that got licensed. 5,000 plus square feet houses, we issued 10 of them. Now, to get some balance in those numbers, I pulled the websites of 5 real estate agents, and if you go to slide 12, you'll see what I'm talking about. I pulled the websites for 5. There's 12 or so in the town, but some of them don't show you the property addresses, some of them don't show you the properties, some of them just list certain elements of the properties. But so I grabbed 5 sites that showed you where the property was, how many people they advertised they could sleep there, and how big the place was, based on bedrooms, 5 bedrooms or more. So what I did was I extracted from those listings everybody who had a 5 bedroom or more listing, how many people they said they slept, and then I cross-referenced that to the list of licenses issued. And the next slide shows what we found. There were 155 rental units that met those criteria, 5 bedrooms or more. They advertised that they were sleeping over 20, there were 27 of them. Sleeping 15 to 19, there were 49 of them. Sleeping 10 to 14, there were 79, and that equals 155. And of that, then I looked at the list of licenses issued for those properties, and of those 155 properties, 86 of them got a mercantile license.
Really?
Yeah,
That's not good.
no kidding. I mean, it shows that our compliance rate is running at about 60%, 56%.
Okay.
Well, in a way, it is good because it suggests that the very successful year we've had can be even
The only question.
much more successful once we figure out compliance.
That's exactly where we're going, and I think I made that point at the council the other night, that this is the first time we've done this. This is the first time through.
Yeah.
We have to know what we did here so that we can do it better next year.
So the only question I have on that is that there are some homes that are rented by more than one realtor.
Yeah, I adjusted for that.
So, and how did you take that into
I
consideration?
I listed each agency's listings and then cross-referenced them and removed.
So these are
duplicates.
unique?
These are 155 unique.
Unique listings.
And a lot of the properties are listed in multiple, 2, 3.
Right.
Yeah, so I knew that was going to happen, so I factored that into the analysis.
Okay.
And what it showed, if you look at the listings and the licenses, there are some things that turn out to be a little wacky, which really are the targets for better enforcement for next year. That's the anomalies we're talking about here.
But do we know so you say we don't know the addresses of the rental units that had no license issued?
Oh, we do know what they are.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, yeah. See, what we don't know is, and again, I only took 5 agencies, and I only took the ones with 5 bedrooms or more,
Correct.
because there's a lot more out there.
There's a lot more out there.
But of that number, we gave out 24 licenses without having them tell us how big their property was, which is the reason for the license.
No, I understand. I'm just trying to, you wonder if you spoke with, and I'm not saying what agency did what, but if you talked to a Realtor that was in that category, the no licensed issue, whether they'd have any rationale for it.
No, it's not between the Realtor and us. It's between the city and the applicant for the license.
I get it. I understand.
So there were applicants who said, I want a mercantile license, and they never said what their square footage was, but they got a license.
But doesn't the Realtor also
Realtor's not-
remind the
Well,
applicant?
and that's an issue on my things to discuss list. How can we,
I mean, wouldn't the Realtor, as part of their, so that, to
Yeah.
protect the applicant so that they
You're
don't
right.
get fined or whatever else?
and the Realtors will
remind-
tell you that we don't rent places without a mercantile license.
I understand that.
We don't know that they don't do that.
No, I get that. I
Okay.
do.
So one of the things going forward is, maybe we should discuss with the city at amending the statute to say that the real estate agent must confirm a license.
I would think that they'd want to have it for their files.
Yeah, well, I would think so too.
I don't know.
But that's an issue we can talk about. Not now, but
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
I know that the problems that come up, we know is always that getting all the licenses done and inspections done.
yes.
In a timely fashion are part of the problem. And so they're already renting their houses out and they don't have a license. And the real estate agencies will tell you that that's, so how are they supposed to confirm whatever?
Right.
But I'm here to tell you that, I'm sorry, you collect revenue on every
Right, right.
rental, and, the ones that you get, you need to keep asking where the license is.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you get to a point, it's,
So I think it would be,
And ultimately, it's the city's responsibility to confirm the existence of a license.
no, I understand.
But, so what can this, and going forward, we'll talk about this, but what can the city do to ensure compliance with that?
Right.
Now, that's an issue for discussion. Especially when you see that the city themselves gave out 24 licenses without anybody telling you how big the property was, which is the basis of the license.
I mean, I'll give you, I don't know, and I know it's not the exact same thing, but I think for the marina, I use Cape May Marina, they require me to provide a copy of the registration that I have on the boat and a copy of my insurance.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's just requirements for the file. And I don't know. It's not fair because the Realtor's not representing us right now, but it just would seem to me that having that as part of their file would be an appropriate thing, I would think.
I don't disagree with you.
I mean, I realize that at the end of the day, it's the applicant, but still.
Right, right. But we need to, we should have a panel meeting with some Realtors
I think so.
later on to discuss this.
I think it would be a
it's a
good
good
thing.
idea.
Yeah,
That's a
I
good
think
idea.
I think it would make a lot of sense.
I recall when the late fee issue came out.
Right.
The reason that the city did what it did for the late fees was because people were knowingly not paying
Yes.
their $75 until the end of the season because the fine was only $7.50. It wasn't worth paying.
Right.
And these places are collecting $100,000 in rental fees, especially the larger places, and the fee is still only $500, but yet they're not being forthright with telling us how many square feet their place has. So I think you're right. I think that this is an evolving process where we now have the system in place. We went through the first year. It was successful, and now we have the opportunity to make it more successful because we want it to be safe and we want it to be fair.
Exactly.
It's not about the money. It's about making sure that it's fair.
No, fairness is definitely a big part of it, I agree. The other question I have, Dennis, and maybe this is for a separate time, but if we know who didn't get their license, why wouldn't we recommend to the city that there be a note that be sent to them?
Yeah, we could do that.
I mean, why not?
This actually came up at the council meeting when we discussed this the other day. How do you encourage or ensure compliance?
There's nothing like a little note that you get in your mailbox that says,
Well, we've actually been tasked with that. The city council has asked us to draft the note that will go along with the mercantile license applications.
oh, they have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Including,
See, Martin pays attention to
So
this.
you were there at the city council.
including the requirement
Yeah.
on insuring it, because that's a new requirement as well. It's a state requirement, and that has to be put in place as well. So
Right.
we have the opportunity to influence that through the way that we draft it, and I'll volunteer to help with that.
Okay, you
Love
just
it.
got that desk. The other thing that came up about that letter that we're going to write, the city, when they approached their initial implementation, the city sent notices to everybody who had a mercantile license, which was not enough, because it never sent a notice to people who have a house but don't have a mercantile license and are renting the house. So the letter that we're going to draft is going to go to every single property owner, explaining to them that we have this ordinance, it's our second year, you're going to be held responsible for the following things, including the insurance piece, and there will be fines and penalties for noncompliance.
Okay,
That gets to your point.
the only comment I make is that I do think that's a little, I agree, by the way, that, like, for instance, as property owners, we should get a letter that reminds us about this if we rent the house. But I also think that if we know that there are individuals that did not pay and were renting, to me, that's a separate letter. I think it needs to be not just a general letter. I mean, you know, I'm sorry, but I do. I believe that's a separate letter from the general one that goes to all property owners.
We can do that.
And the realtors are also the key. If they're the conduit, making sure that the realtors understand their responsibility to ensure that there's a MERC license, then, you know, that's 3/4 of the battle.
Yeah, and like I was mentioning, a work session with a panel of realtors to lay out 5 or 6 issues that we know now, based on the first year, we know these are problems. What can we do to help out, make this thing work a little better?
So Charity is no longer on this committee, is that, I mean, she hasn't been here for a little while.
She hasn't been here since June of 2001.
So shouldn't we get another
I've
realtor?
been trying to do that.
Yeah.
I've been trying to do that.
For the committee, I would think so. I mean, it's a really important constituency for this group.
I'm taking notes here. Okay. The other anomalies that we found when we looked at this data was that not a lot of people, but some people were taking licenses inappropriately. Meaning, like, look at the anomaly section. There were 3 rental units of under 1,000 square feet that advertised that they slept 14.
They're my favorite.
well, they
They're
did-
my favorite.
Well, they didn't say 14 adults, did they?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So we have to make sure that everybody who gets a license is real serious about how many square feet they have. And it came up in the conversation at the meeting, and I wasn't quick enough to think about this, but this committee had originally proposed that the fee be based on the sleeping capacity.
Yes.
And the council changed that to the square footage capacity.
I know.
And if we had stuck with our original proposal, these folks would not have been able to get a license, because they would have to tell us how many they're sleeping.
But they probably wouldn't say they were sleeping 14.
I know.
No, but they're advertised.
No, but they advertised on
They
a
advertise.
realtor's website that they
Yeah.
say 14.
No, I understand, but
Well, okay, we've,
It might make them more honest with the advertisements.
Do the property tax records have square footage?
yes,
Yes, they do.
yeah.
We could, in theory,
It's why, in fact,
Well,
council
actually-
wanted to change it.
Yeah, we have it, and that's what I used when I looked at the data, because I looked at the square footage of the property from the real estate compared it to the license fees, and that's how these popped out. So we know, and when they go to apply for their license, they basically say how many square feet they have. And if they said, well, I don't know how many square feet they have, the staff then says, check your real estate, check your tax record.
Yep.
Because it's on your tax record.
Yep.
And so that's how they do it. But
But if you're advertising your place to Sleep 14 and you're telling us we have 1,000 square feet, then that's clearly, you're not telling the whole story. I mean, these property owners have benefited from a well-run city that's attractive for people to come to. Rents have doubled since 2014 because of how well the city's doing. And someone won't pay their $300 or their $500.
Well, that's the thing, is that.
I know we don't want to be heavy-handed about this. We don't want to be police about it either, but at the same time,
There are
if the
people,
law
that-
says you're supposed to pay 500, pay 500.
people would take it in, $100,000 in rent are trying like hell to avoid a $500 fee. I mean, it's like, okay.
Yeah, I listened to a friend complain all summer long about the increase from the 75, and I'm like, how much are you making? I don't get it. It's now 250.
No.
So, I mean, I don't get it.
yeah, and if this committee didn't put its foot down at one point, it would have, the 75 would have stayed.
Yeah,
For,
that's right.
but anyway.
And we did make it more reasonable. It was,
Yeah.
Well,
there were numbers a lot higher than this, and we downsized it, so, to make it more reasonable.
500?
$500 per season, initially, we were thinking about,
Now, let's just briefly talk about that third element, the market inventory, which is on page 5.
slide 5?
Yeah, real 5, slide 9 and 10. And here's where the real task for year 2, it gets defined. What we've done here so far is very preliminary. We only took 5 real estate agents' listings. We only took houses with 5 bedrooms advertised. And we tried to see if the new system works the way we think it should be working. And this is what we found. There's a lot more that needs to be done, because in the market inventory analysis, we've only taken 5 agencies in number 1. There's more than 5. This is why we need to meet with the realtors. We also don't know a lot about the transient marketplace. We do know that there's 5 companies that have sent us money because they collected taxes from the folks with the occupancy tax. We're going to try and find out how much they collected and who did they collect it from, so that we have a better handle. That's market analysis there. And then the third is the private options. Now, there are folks who rent their properties and don't advertise with an agency and don't list it with a real estate office. And those folks are in the game just as much as anybody else is. And Mike's point at the meeting the other night was the correct one. It's a question of equity. If the compliance is increasing and everybody's trying to do what they're supposed to do, we need to make sure that X percent of people who are not doing that start to do it, because it's not fair to everybody else. So,
I'm trying to remember, did we have penalties for noncompliance?
yeah, there was, yeah.
What was it?
I forget. I forget.
But there was some kind of penalty.
So if we look at defining this market inventory, we have to look at the charts which I used right from the Census Bureau, which is the latest data from the 2020 census. And by the way, just as an aside, the 2020 census numbers, everybody talks about the 25% decrease in the population. Have you heard about that?
Yeah.
That actually, I think, is as a result of the way the Census Bureau reported their numbers. Because for the first time in the last 4 census, I've been doing this for 40 years, that's how stupid I am, but so for the first time, they broke out the number into population and non-institutional population. Now, for a city like Piscataway, it might not mean any different, but for a city like Cape May, that means a lot, because the non-institutional number are the people who actually live here and pay taxes, and that's the voting base.
Right.
The institutional population is the Coast Guard base.
Okay.
So our population has declined, but I don't think it declined by 25%. I think it declined by about 12%.
Still a decline.
Yes, it's still a decline, but the Coast Guard number has always been factored in with the total number. And so we really don't know, we didn't know that at the time. We thought we were just 3,500 people. Now we're not 3,500 people,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
we're 2,700 people. Anyway, so you look at the Census Bureau, and the separation of residential housing stock pretty much stayed the same over the last 20 years. We currently have 21% of our residential units that are occupied by their owner. That's not you, Russ, that's,
No, I get it.
we
No,
have-
I'm a vacant.
You're a vacant. There's 12% of our units that are occupied by people renting that property on a full-time basis,
Right.
year-round rentals. And then the other 67% of the housing stock is vacant, according to the Census Bureau, and we know that that's where the heart and soul of the residential rental market is. And of that number, we have 38% of them have paid a mercantile license.
So that's the,
So we know that, so what we know is 32% of our residential
gotcha.
vacant stock is a residential enterprise.
I see.
What we don't know is, what about the 62? How much of the 62 are also in the business of renting?
So,
How much of the 62 are in the rust category where they don't rent, that's their house, they live there when they can?
right. So the full-time, going back to your prior slide.
Right.
So I understand. I get the owners don't rent. The 500, the full-time rentals.
Right.
Are those are owned? Are
They're
those?
owned by somebody else, but they're lived in by a renter,
Okay. Gotcha.
all right?
And those.
But-
And they don't need a
do not pay
mercantile.
mer-
They don't pay a
They don't,
mercantile
yeah,
tax.
they don't need a
The
mercantile.
mercantile tax is limited to seasonal rentals, up to and including, I think it's 180 days.
180, yeah.
So what I'm trying to understand, if you have 2,700 residents, 2,700 residents own how many homes?
No, there's 2,700
This is
residential,
1,380, so two people per house would make that number work pretty well.
yeah.
1,380 is the
882
882
plus
plus
the
the 500?
500, right.
But the 500, they're not living there.
Yes, they are.
They're not owning,
people
but
living in
they live
those
here and they vote here.
But I thought you said they're full,
No, don't think people, think property.
the property is a full-time rental.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're, but you're saying most of those people are living there as well?
No, I'm saying that 21% of our residential properties, or dwelling units, they call it, they're occupied by the person or persons who own them.
I understand that.
And
12%
full-time.
of those residential dwelling units are occupied by renters. It could be 2 people, 3 people, 4 people.
I get it. What I'm trying to do, and maybe doesn't matter, but I was trying to get back to the total number of residents and where do they fit into this pie? Obviously, the 882, they fit there.
Right, and they fit into 500.
So you
if
so
you're
you think
renting
they're living
full-time-
there and renting?
Right.
You're a resident, correct. If you're living full-time in a rental property, you're a resident.
So you're saying, okay, I
You
got
can
you.
vote here. That's
So-
basically what it is.
So basically,
it is.
these are full-time renters
Right.
who are also residents?
Right.
No, I understand.
Got it. Registered voters, maybe, but certainly citizens captured by the census.
Yep,
Maybe captured is the wrong word, but counted by the census.
interesting.
All right, so our task, the city's task, is to better define the market inventory by looking in that 62% and finding out who's the business and who's a rust sticker, basically.
Right, no, I get it. And you're already suggesting that you've got, from prior slides, some big houses
Yeah,
that aren't.
yeah, yeah. I see, like,
Probably big houses that don't even have a MERC fee.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
see, and again, go back to that one slide, the 155 units. In the advertisements in the real estate brokers, there were 20 houses, there were 27 houses who said, we can sleep over 20 people.
Right, I get it.
And we got 10 licenses out of that group.
Right. Right. Okay.
All right? And then the last page, page 8, slides 15 and 16, we basically, in a very polite way, assigned the task to the council. This is year two's agenda, right here. We know we have an increase of 12% in licensing, that's good. Way better than it was. Can you imagine what it was 3-4 years ago? We've had a 114% increase in the revenue.
Right.
And by the way, this is to your point, Russ, I know you're gonna make it, so I'll pre-make it.
Pre-made.
It's a pre-made point. That revenue is only for the license. That also increases the revenue for the tourist
For the
fee,
tourist fee and
the
everything.
fire inspection,
Right.
and the parking fee, all of those other things all went up also. The more licenses you issue, the more the
the other.
revenue goes up.
Yep, yep.
All right? The city's has done a good job first year of getting this thing up and running. And a 262 increase in revenue over 2019.
Yep.
When this committee was basically formed.
Right.
Now, what we don't know is how many units are there that are out there in the market?
And that boggles my mind that something like that can't be determined fairly easily. Somebody has that data.
Well, see,
And to be honest with you, I personally do think that the agencies, the VRBOs, the Airbnbs, the HomeAways, they have that information.
Yeah.
They have that information, and and we have asked, or,
We've asked the state, where's that sheet?
well, so they're paying the state, which I
Yeah,
guess is
what
the
they do
issue.
is that they collect it from their renters.
Right.
Send it to the state, the state takes their piece and sends the rest to us.
Right,
But they don't send it by property.
right.
And they only send it by agency. That's why this list looks like that.
So you can't cross-reference
Yeah.
the occupancy tax that we collect from the transients?
Not yet.
Because one of our committee members, I thought, said she thought we would be able to do that.
No.
And I'm trying to remember who that
It
was.
was Cindy Mullis.
Cindy.
Yeah.
I thought there would have been a way, because that's certainly, if they're paying an occupancy tax, they also should be, they should be licensed, right?
Yeah, this is a gray area. The real estate agencies will tell you, we don't require them to have a license. We tell them to make sure you get a license.
No, I'm sorry, I was talking about the VRBOs. I'm talking
They
about,
do the same thing. The VR.
no, but they have to pay an occupancy tax. That they've agreed to do.
They do have to do that, and the VROBs say the same thing as the agencies say. They say to the homeowner, you have to pay us, we'll take care of that tax. You also should make sure you have a mercantile license if your town requires one.
No, I appreciate that. I guess I'm sorry. I was coming back to the fact that if you could find actual property addresses from the
Well-
VRBOs who paid an occupancy tax, that would be a step towards making sure they got
The
that.
information's in there. We just have to make sure we talk to them and get it out.
That's what I would think it would be.
There's a place to find it. We can definitely find that out.
Okay.
It's in this stuff. We just have to drill down, and we can drill down two ways. This is from the state. We can also go to the agencies and ask them to tell us. For example, you see this list here? I would like to start with the state and say to the state, if you're uncomfortable telling me how much money you took from Tom Schwartz on Smith Avenue, tell me how much money you took from Airbnb
Right.
for July. Because then I know what's
Right.
going on. Then I know how many dollars. You see that dollar figure there?
Yeah.
That's just for July. That's just for Cape May City. And that's 3% of a bigger number. That bigger number is $150 million.
Yeah, wow.
That's how much money came through the rental industry in this city in 1 month.
Wow.
That's only through the transient marketplace.
Yeah.
It's not the private rental.
That's right.
No.
That's right. Exactly right. And that's also not through the real estate agency market, because they don't participate in that aspect.
How could that be 785,000 for the month of July and the entire projection is 2.6 million?
Well, the numbers drop as you go into the lower seasons.
Well, yeah, but, okay. All right, well,
You see the numbers, how they drop? Like November's 120.
oh, we didn't start till July? So we didn't have,
Right.
okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
That 2.6 number, that's just for July through December. That's projected. The actual dollars in hand,
And this 786 includes the hotels as well as
Everything.
okay, gotcha.
and includes the 1% more for the hotels.
For the hotels, too. Gotcha.
And the 3% for the other. All right, so we're down to that last page, and we need to know how many licensed units are there, how many are rented in the private market, and, well, we need to know a lot more about the universe of rentals. And we said to the council that we'd like the council to consider spending this year in that analysis phase, which is required by the statute, to verify the rental market, beef up inspections and monitoring and enforcement and penalties, and put more staff on this job.
Right, you'd asked for staffing before.
Yeah.
Did we get any?
We got one person, and the person was helpful because they used him or her, I forget who it was, primarily for data entry, because data entry was the biggest job in this thing. So they did use that, but we need more people.
Who was was it, not Lower Township, was it Westgate? Who hired the,
Lower Township.
was it Lower Township?
Yeah.
Did we ever find out from them how that worked out for them? Do they
No.
still have that firm that they're, that they're using?
Well, I thought that was a one-time analysis.
It was.
It gave them a number, but it had no commitment to collect money or to do anything else other than give them basic information.
I see. So it wasn't really as helpful,
It wouldn't do
what we needed.
what we would want them to do.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
It didn't do any of this
no.
this market analysis.
But that case, Dennis, is one that's an return on investment case that has to be made to council. And, if we're at 60% compliance, getting us to 80% compliance has to be
imagine?
worth,
Can you imagine?
has to be worth 10, well, maybe not. It's certainly worth
it'll be
bodies
significant.
put at it,
It'll be significant.
yes.
Well, but then, and the other part of it is, I think Martin said it, is that it's a fairness, and I'd add a safety issue.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Stacy's
so-
point.
so-
Stacy, and we've made that point here, too. We owe it to the people who come to stay here that the buildings they're staying in are safe.
Or safe.
And if we can't do that, then we're going to be in trouble.
Right.
We're going to be in trouble. All right, so that's that issue. We'll continue to work. I'm going to work.
So what's the takeaway on this is that, Martin volunteered to write a letter? I still think there should be a separate letter for the, I don't know, what word do I use? The people that didn't understand that they had to pay a fee, how's that? Or get licensed.
And we know them, we
you're-
know who they are.
You're volunteering not for that.
You're volunteering for the citizen letter, for the
No.
letter that's going?
Well,
to
I'm
all-
not sure that they're different. I think that the letter is going to be reminding people of their responsibilities as property owners.
Yeah.
Here's, I think.
But
the
you're
difference.
saying-
What I'm saying is, if you are known to have not done this, getting a letter in your mail that says, we understand or we believe that you rented your property is different from a letter that's coming to me
Right.
saying, as a reminder, if you do rent your property,
That's all I'm trying to say.
I do understand that. I'm just not sure, given the fact that we're just coming out of the first year, I think there would be a lot of people that would simply say, I didn't know, or it wasn't clear to me. So if we are clearer in their responsibilities, then I think it's easier to follow up, and maybe there is, we've noticed on your application that you're putting in 1,000 square feet, okay, and your tax bill says you have 5,000 square feet.
I'm just thinking about letters that go to vacants like
Sure.
myself.
I'm-
These letters get, you sort of read them and,
I didn't share that my prior background was, I'm a CPA.
Okay.
Okay. The IRS operates on the basis of everybody fearing being audited. They actually only audit 1% of returns.
Right.
Okay. But it's the fear of being audited. I don't know that we necessarily want to go that far, but we can start to give a clearer message that there are penalties for noncompliance, and including being shut down, and helping people to travel down that path with us.
And I, if I could read the sentiment of the council from the other night, I think they're generally in favor of saying to people, this was our first year at this, this is what we found out, this is what we still need to do. You're going to get a grace period. You're going to get a pass for the first year. Lots of folks complied, thank you very much. Lots of folks didn't comply. This year, there's not going to be a grace period.
right. I think if that's reemphasized, I'll feel better about the letter. I would suggest if we have the same conversation a year from now, I would definitely feel
No,
different.
you're absolutely right.
I understand what you're saying, and I think the council's viewpoint, for example, on the requirement of insurance, they were going to give them a year grace period, and then someone pointed out, you can't. You
Yeah.
can't remain out of compliance with something
right,
for a
so-
year. So
That's
it will be,
I come from the insurance background, so.
it will be clearly worded.
The CPA,
And-
I'm the insurance guy, and I will tell you
Sure.
that it bothers me.
Yep, it bothers me too. There's a word for it, it's called scofflaw.
Thank you.
Yeah, right. I also want to
That's the
make
word that
one,
was coming to my mind.
I also want to make one more point that was put into the statute, the ordinance, specifically for this discussion. And that was that you don't have to rent your place to have to pay a fee. You have to make your place available to rent. You have to put it on the market.
Really?
Yeah. And the language of the ordinance says, any action taken by the owner of record to advertise, solicit, or contract to market a rental unit with or without a lease by any means, including but not limited to a licensed real estate agent, a transient space marketplace, print or electronic media, newspapers, ads, personal referrals, or signage. So the transaction is not the renting of the place. The transaction is the marketing of the place.
Marketing, yeah.
Seems a little, well, I'm sort of on the opposite side of that one. It just seems a little, that seems a little,
Well, because I don't think we can have a system that says,
you pay $500 for,
yeah. if it's
and
gonna- if
you
it's
never
gonna-
even rent
we-
the
We
place.
had this discussion a year and a half ago, I think, on this issue. You can't have a system that licenses based on whether or not you may or may not want to rent.
Yeah, I hear you.
This is the rental season. You have your house. You want to rent it, you list it, you pay a license fee. And I kind of knew this discussion was going to come up sooner or later, and that's why I wrote that.
No, I think it's it is appropriate.
It-
If you.
And you
if
have to
ma-
clarify it.
Yeah, if you make it available, you really need to.
Right.
Because you could rent it just like that. Then what are you going to do? You're going to, then you start the process of,
Exactly. And then what kind of a registration system?
Registration.
Are the staff here going to be having to implement?
No, it's fair, it's a fair point.
Yeah.
I just,
Okay, well, that is our,
Mike, on the staffing issue, when we get there with council, okay, we have 1,735 vacant units that we don't know what is going on with, okay? If we turn 175, 10% of those 1,735 into licensed units, that's $25,000. That pays for the person.
that's right.
right.
One person get me 10%, one person get me 20%, we
Right.
just got a payday.
Right.
But I mean, going forward,
Right.
we're also,
And
the
that person,
future it's a permanent
and that
sort of
person
thing.
would not just be doing this.
Right.
That person would be available to the
Yeah.
city manager to do anything
We-
else.
But it can be self-funding.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the 25, that's
Oh,
just
it's
this
more, it'll be
fee.
more self-funding, yeah.
But Martin, it doesn't include the other fees either.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
it's actually more than the 25,000,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
right? I mean, it's,
Okay.
yeah, good.
Have we beaten this horse? Is it still alive?
so
Okay,
we're gonna, so,
what else?
so everybody's nice, played nice in the sandbox the first year. I get it.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah.
I'm okay.
Let's all give,
Did I hear, you weren't suggesting that we were going to tell people that they get a buy on this year in a letter?
no, no.
Okay, all
No,
right.
no.
Well,
Okay, okay.
well,
No, the
retro-
letters are gonna be,
retroactively, you're
Oh.
not going back after the money, are you?
What I wouldn't want to see is, well, to be honest with you, what I think is, yeah. I think that if you,
But I heard-
but here's what
but
I'm
I heard
saying.
that-
in the letter, all right,
Well, all I'm saying is that if you tell people they get a buy, then everybody that paid
Yeah.
is, they
How-
paid their student loan, and
How
the
about
guy
this?
next to him
How about
doesn't.
if we do the work that we need to do to determine who wasn't in compliance, and then we make sure that they're on a list that we're reviewing their application this year? And if they come in again out of compliance, we go back to them and say, hey, you owe us now for the 2 years of
That's-
non-compliance.
I like that.
That's good.
We don't have
That's
to advertise
good.
it,
Now,
but,
now, I'm with you on that.
okay.
okay.
Me too.
Okay, we did mercantile license. The low-speed vehicle issue, I sent you that copy.
Yep.
I met yesterday with finally, with the Bicycle and Traffic Safety Committee.
You were there?
Yes.
On this issue.
Yes, I was.
And we had been holding this issue until we could meet with them, and there was a lot of back and forth. So we actually met with them.
And they saw this recommendation?
Yeah. And here's basically the bottom line, and Mike, you can help me out on this.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the bottom line was that they're very much in support of the recommendation to license low-speed vehicles, but separate that away from the bicycles and the motorized bikes.
That's where I was.
Yeah, and let that just stand on its own, but with the understanding that that also is a problem that needs to be addressed.
That's where I was. I felt all along that we ought to attack the low-speed vehicles first and try to figure out what else we do with
Okay.
motorbikes and segways.
Does that pretty much cover it, Mike?
I think that's exactly it. I expressed concern, I said to Dennis, just as long as we are not going to not do those other ones, because they're very important, and we can, but I agreed 100%. They were right, you
Start with-
guys are right.
Start with the low-speed.
That is, yes.
And they bought into.
And you'll learn a lot doing that
Exactly.
also.
And they bought into the notion that our impetus for doing this was essentially, we identified a business operating in town with no controls,
I guess,
no revenue for its enforcement.
would it make some sense then, Mike, I mean, for that committee to have something else that reemphasizes things like adherence to, stop signs, speed limits, helmets, other safety kinds of things that you hear about in town and see?
I see next year as being the year, and absolutely.
I mean, you start
And I
with
think
that
we
stuff
need to
first.
be released, we need to go after that strongly. It's an education thing, and there's a couple of things that we can do, but I absolutely agree, and I can tell you that's certainly going to be a direction that I hope they are heading. Certainly, council's got to head that way.
I mean, it's not a revenue issue, but it's
No,
It's
it's a
not.
safety issue,
It
though.
steps over to the safety issue, but at the council meeting, you'll remember that Lorraine was very strongly looking at a comprehensive enforcement
Yeah.
strategy for the city to make sure that all of these kinds of things are properly enforced, effectively enforced, and then it comes back to us, because as a revenue committee, if they're going to be enforced, where's the revenue going to be coming from to enforce them properly?
What do they do about the person that drives up on the boardwalk, up on the, what?
Well,
Did you do that?
That wasn't a golf cart,
it was a truck.
it was a truck.
Oh, I heard about that.
Did you see a picture of it?
No.
Well, the guy said that he didn't see a sign saying that it couldn't go up there, so he went up. They did issue a summons, I think is what the caption said.
They did
But
issue
I got something from
mean,
Mike. Yeah, they did issue a summons, but the guy was driving up the promenade.
All right, so
Incredible.
our report to the Bicycle and Safety Committee, I'll redraft that document, and they've already passed a resolution supporting it,
They have.
They have,
cool.
yes.
supporting it, and
Yes.
I suggested that the resolution that they pass would be supporting the concept pending review of the final draft of this thing.
Great.
That's what we'll do.
Dennis, how do we get to the rental companies?
We have two ways to do it. The city's going to do it through the state, and also the city's going to do it directly to those agencies. I have the numbers of all those people. I'm actually calling them myself. I told the CFO I would do that.
So how far is the circle going out to find these dealers?
I'm talking, I thought you meant the rental stuff.
Nope.
We know who the dealers are. There's 10 of them.
Okay,
There's 10 of them, and they're all from Seaville South.
okay.
And so when this ordinance gets passed, they'll be informed through an official notification that if a vehicle that you rent operates within the city of Cape May, you have to be registered. And then that gives the police department the opportunity to enforce by using the registration process.
So, just so I'm clear then, now that's for the rentals. If you own
Yeah,
a low-speed vehicle, you still will get a registration, you just don't pay for it, right?
you get a decal for
A decal.
what it costs. The decal costs $1, you get it for $1.
Yeah.
And
So every
And
vehicle,
In the discussion with the chief was here, and he supports the thing, too.
yeah,
So, but we also agreed that if you live in a jurisdiction that's patrolled by our police department, you get a decal. So if you live in West Cape May, or you live in Cape May Point, our police patrol your town, so you get a decal.
And they're coming into the town anyhow. They need a
course they are.
decal. So, yeah, they're going to get one just like, the interesting conversation is the people that actually trailer their own LSVs from their home when they come for vacation.
well, that's true, and that is starting to happen now.
Yeah, yeah. And, but, you know, I guess our point is that they are in fact registered vehicles, just like everybody else that owns them in this town. The only question is what do we do with those people? I mean, they should really get a
If you're
sticker,
resident,
just like,
They have to get a decal.
yeah,
How
they
will
have to
they
get a
know that?
decal. I don't know if it's going to be that big a number, but we do have this little unanswered question.
There's not that many of them.
I can't imagine it's a lot,
Well,
but we
most
got to
of them,
we'll have to have a plan.
From registration, we'll know how many people have their vehicles registered in Cape May.
Yeah.
But it's the one coming up from Maryland that we can't capture.
Right.
No.
But it'll be interesting, you know, that you make a point, it'll have a Maryland tag on it,
They will.
which is almost, they get a buy only because they have a Maryland tag on it.
Or else, again, this is an issue we can bring up to the real estate agents, too. If they could help the city by informing their clients, their tenants, that Cape May has this rule. If you're gonna bring your own car in, you gotta get a license on it, or a decal. But that's a detail we could work out,
Yeah.
yeah?
What is the fine? I know that it says there would be a fine for noncompliance.
We haven't said anything about that yet.
Okay.
I mean, we said that, but,
It has to be significant, or the dealers will say,
yeah.
can't be $10.
You're right. This is the kind of thing, sometimes this committee drafts ordinances because we want to specifically say stuff. Other times, we put general proposals together, and we ask the council for the city to draft the ordinance. So this would be one of those opportunities, I think.
Right, right.
In terms of what the fines are, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. This is also, it's another safety issue, and what we're insisting on is that that operator up in Seaville instructs the people that they rent the carts to, they deliver the carts, they have to provide all of the safety and operating.
Well, personally, after what happened in
Instructions.
Wildwood, I would be not putting my children on an LSV. I'll tell you that much.
Exactly.
I mean, that, you are not going to fare well if you're involved in an accident, even at 20 miles per hour.
Yeah.
You're not. And
No, no.
whether you're belted in or otherwise, that cart got tipped over. And
That guy's still in a coma, too, by the
there
way.
were 4 children on the cart. So it's the right thing to not include the electric bikes, but the city does need to come to grips with electric bicycles.
Yeah,
I
We-
don't know that it's an MTRAC issue, but
It isn't an MTRAC issue necessarily, no, it isn't at all. But the problem is that the state statute controls that.
well, we control whether electric bikes are allowed on the promenade, for example. And as a runner, I can promise you,
Well, yeah,
I don't
yeah,
want
we
to
do that,
have
but
a
the
25-mile-an-hour electric bike on the promenade, even at 7 a.m.
Right.
And also, I don't think we want them on our beaches. That's a problem in California, where they're, with the fat tires, they're riding up and down the beaches in dozens.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there is a problem.
Yep.
Because the statute that was created to encourage electric bicycles in 2019 basically exempted electric bicycles from all of the motor vehicle requirements. There's no registration required.
We looked at all that.
There's no insurance required.
Right.
They don't have to follow the motor vehicle rules of the road.
They don't,
No?
No.
No.
but bicycles do?
Technically, bicycles do. I mean, technically, everybody, when there's a red light, you're supposed to stop. But if you're on a motorized bicycle, if you don't stop, nobody's going to say anything to you, because it's not a motor vehicle. It's not a motor vehicle offense.
Same with those Segways. There's more and more of those electric Segways, too. And gosh, talk about unsafe.
I want to see you on a Segway.
I've been on one.
Oh, you have? Not for long, though.
I can do a Segway. Used to be a surfer, dude. Come on, man.
So the byproduct of including the electric bikes in this would have been, it's an opportunity for education.
It would have, but
So-
enforcement would be impossible.
Yeah.
Because of the statute that,
Yeah.
and there's 3 kinds of bikes. 2 of them are free and clear under that 2019 statute. The third one is like the Vespa, the scooter.
But about the motor scooter,
That's a Vespa kind of a thing. That is a motor vehicle.
and so I'm a little surprised that the motor scooter wouldn't fit in the same category as the low-speed
Yeah,
vehicle.
no, well, here,
I understand the bikes, the motorized bikes, the Segways, the motorbike, but the motor scooter, I think about like Chrissy's.
Yeah, well, she has to have a license, and she has to have a helmet, and she has to obey all,
That's what I meant.
yeah.
But
It's
we're,
a-
but we're
it's
not
like a
saying.
motorcycle.
But we're not saying it's no decal for those,
no.
because,
I would
No, the
hope
law-
not, because then motorcycles would be the same thing.
okay, so motor scooters shouldn't even be on here at all.
Well, let me, this is the state's document defining the differences in these bikes. There's 3 categories: a low-speed electric scooter. That's the lowest one.
Yeah, that's a different,
And that is, the only requirement that has with it is that you have to wear a helmet if you're under 17.
What's a low-speed motor scooter look like?
those
It looks like
little, there's the scooters that you would push with your foot, but they're electric now.
It's practically a skateboard with an electric.
Oh, that thing,
And
okay.
yeah,
And a
the
handle.
It almost looks like a Segway in some ways, right?
No, no,
It's 4 wheels.
But
it's got 4 wheels.
Well, it's 2 wheels.
No, it's got 2 wheels. It's a scooter. It's like a skateboard with a little
Okay,
motor.
now I
on it.
understand, I got it.
And then the second category is a low-speed electric bicycle, and that has to go a maximum of 20 miles an hour. Now, they look like bicycles,
No, I know.
Yes.
and they're the ones that are being rented
I
out.
had 2 of them go in front of the house today, and God, no stop signs, no nothing, man.
Yeah.
And they are not required to be registered,
And they don't have to wear a helmet either, do they?
licensed. They do have to wear a helmet under 17.
Oh, under 17.
17. And then there's the third category is a motorized bicycle, which it actually looks like a Vespa.
Yeah, no, I've seen that one.
And that has to have a license, has to have registration, helmets for everybody, and maximum speed 28 miles an hour. So if we had included this stuff in this ordinance, it would have been way too much of a mix.
But hopefully, we will eventually expand on this. We're starting with the LSVs. and
That's
moving
right.
from-
Well, the LSV that's our issue, because it's a revenue issue. It's a business operating in town, with no control or input into the cost of
But
enforcement.
the electric bikes are the same.
Well, they are.
They could
They
be,
are.
but they need to start on the safety stuff
Correct,
first.
right.
Yeah.
Which isn't our issue. That's
Right.
that other committee.
All right, that's L speed, okay. All right. The last thing I wanted to pass out to you, and I will probably knock off in a little while because I'm getting tired of talking. This is something that we did last spring, and it's a companion piece to the task we were given by the council to examine this issue of parking. And you recall that we had recommended that there be a study
Right.
for parking, and the
Yep.
council,
Yep.
we recommended that the council give two
Yep.
advisory committees that task, one to design the system, that's parking committee, and then the other one, that's you, and the other one is to design a financing or funding process.
Right.
It'll be stable, secure, and effective.
Right.
Now, we did this last spring, and it really is a sort of a background piece that explains the problems about parking finance in Cape May. And I don't think we want to go through it, but I wanted to give that to you now so that you can look through that. And at our next meeting, I want to start focusing in on some of the practical ways that we can suggest how to fund a citywide transportation system that really would want to do two things. Number one, it would alleviate the parking problem in the city. And number two, it would fund itself on a perpetual basis. Because like parking meters, the revenue on parking meters is generally considered to be a general fund appropriation. And if we're going to have a system that needs money all by itself to transport people around the city, that needs its own funding source. Parking necessarily doesn't need to, parking meters are not the same as a fully funded transportation system, if you follow me.
Has the parking committee met yet?
Yes.
Does the parking committee feel that an expanded city transit system, jitneys, et cetera, is going to be viable and used? Okay.
Yeah.
Because in some shore towns, they've actually abandoned that.
In others, it's working well, so it's a matter of
I-
where
Listen, I'm-
is the dividing line
And the
between a
ta-
well-run system and a system that's not.
Yeah, exactly. The task of that committee is, the council specifically said that they need to examine places where there is such a thing and it is working properly.
Once the parking meters are running, my immediate neighborhood is completely all employees of businesses.
Right.
If we give those employees who generally do not live in Cape May
A way to get
a way to get in, they will pull off in North Cape May, or they will pull off before the island.
You just said what I agree with, which is, the issue is getting them into Cape May. The trouble is, if they're into Cape May, where do they go, you know?
But if it's safe and reliable and convenient,
I agree with you.
they will take it.
I would agree with you.
And that,
But that means that the parking committee has to be working with other municipalities,
well, that's part of their task.
right?
Did you see have you read the ordinance?
No.
I'll send it to you because it's exactly what that group is charged with. They're not charged with saying, what do we do about parking? They're specifically charged with examining other towns, designing a system which is comprehensive, meets the needs of Cape May, and then it kicks it over to us to fund that.
No, I'm sorry. What I meant was that I would think that, you know, if you parked in North Cape May, you need not just Cape May's approval, you need other municipalities
Oh,
around
of
Cape
course,
May.
and that's,
Right.
I think that's part of the parking committee's
So the
charge.
task force's charge is to just come up with the ideas of what's going to work. Our job is going to be how to pay for it.
I get it.
Right.
I just want to make sure that it's something that
Right. And so
people are
for-
going to use.
for
I mean, you look right now, we have the trolley goes by our property, it's empty.
Yep, but the Mack trolley isn't.
Right.
Okay?
Why is
So
that?
why is that?
And then,
Because they're getting a tour.
and then every
on the Mack
year-
trolley, right?
Every year, we all wait until like maybe the middle of May, the end of May, to find out if we're even gonna have a trolley system, because it's different every year. And it depends on how much money can be cobbled around from the budget to fund this thing for a year. That
You're
can't
talking about
be
the
way-
jitney.
Yeah,
The jitney.
yeah. And that can't be the way we do it. All right?
It's interesting.
So what I wanted you to do was actually just
Got an idea on that.
revisit this, get your head thinking around some ways, different ways to fund.
So this will be next meeting?
Yeah. And then also take a look at this.
Yeah, could you, I guess I can go online. If you could send me that other ordinance, I'd love to read that parking committee about it.
Parking, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna give you a heads up on this issue. When I was interviewed by the Star and Wave,
Yeah.
18 questions, one of them was, do you support the city establishing a transportation network itself? And I said, absolutely not. I said, I support a network, but not to be owned and operated by the city.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that we should be buying vehicles. I don't think we should be chasing down drivers. I don't think that we should be maintaining vehicles. I think that the city needs to stay out of businesses and let
Private business?
private businesses do it. But the design is right. I absolutely support the design. It's just, I'm going to say, if I may be the lone, actually, I may not have any vote unless I'm reelected, but I would prefer that we
It's a fair point. Absolutely.
contract out to
Yep.
people who know how to do this.
It starts with the larger employers,
Yeah.
and we also have the Washington Mall Association. I mean, so, I mean, if we really do focus on
Right.
the employees as opposed to the guests, if the employees aren't parking here, then the guests have more room to park.
Sure.
So maybe there's a way to be able to get at it that way.
Yeah, and and to your point, it's the service that we're talking about, not,
Absolutely.
it's just the service we're talking about. The city's job is to fund the service.
Yes.
The city's job is not necessarily to operate the service, it's to provide.
Let's
the
fund,
funding
yeah,
to the
we'll,
service and
right,
do that.
exactly.
Yeah, and by the way, that's a good point to make. I don't know if you made it or not to that, but we have a history of that because the city decided several years ago to get into the recyclable collection business.
Yeah.
And it's a
Something that-
disaster.
yes.
And it's a freaking disaster.
Yes, I was mad when it happened, and of course, I wasn't on council, I was just a taxpayer at the time.
It's
And now we own equipment, we have employee injuries, we've got all the nightmares
And
of a business.
The only
that-
reason to do it would, at that time, would have been the notion that it would more than pay for itself. Well, it's not more than pay.
That's right.
It's costing us a lot of money.
It is.
The recyclable market is zeroed out.
Yep.
There's no value in recyclables.
Right.
Right.
And then now we're stuck with this giant, so that's a good point to make.
So Dennis, I did have one point that I wanted to bring, and maybe it's for my own education. I'll try to do it without your talking about it. The council is looking at fast-tracking registration for boats, to put something in for this off-season, where boats that are moored in Cape May Harbor have to register their boats. But there's no registration fee that's being associated with it. Your
No,
boat is here for 30 days or more. You have to register your boat, but it's free?
yeah. Well, it's actually, the issue is, in the winter months, more than 30 days is, the harbor's closed.
Right.
We're closing that area, so we don't want to be selling anything which allows you to stay in the harbor for more than 30 days, because that's exactly what we want to stop. You've got to get your boat out of here.
But we're putting-
So now, the rest of the year, are we charging a fee? Not yet. Would I agree that we should? Yeah, I think so.
So the ordinance is being introduced now. It's going to reinforce that there's no mooring of boats during the off-season.
That's right.
But the ordinance
right.
itself is applicable in the season when it starts in March.
That's
But there's
right.
not going to be a fee.
Right.
Okay,
Well,
so-
you're right.
If we have to add a fee later on, that's immeasurably harder then establishing that there is a fee going in. And I know that Tom Carroll said it wasn't worth $50 to try to collect it. I'm not sure that it should be $50 if you're mooring your boat for 30 days or more.
Right,
Mooring your boat in the harbor.
in the harbor.
In the
Yeah,
harbor.
but the problem is,
That's what.
the harbor is owned by different, I mean, it's not just all city of Cape May.
No, it's
Correct.
only,
So
it's only the Cape
marinas
May.
charge for their registrations.
I'm sorry?
The marinas
Oh,
charge.
no, I understand that, but even a portion of the harbor, there's a portion of the harbor that's not the city of Cape May.
Yeah, we only have,
That is the
we
problem.
only have from the, below the yacht club down to the cove and out to the
That's the
channel.
part that I didn't understand.
Yeah.
And they talked about the fact that sometimes the boat is moored in Cape May, and sometimes it's
Lower,
lower.
yes.
Where the tides
That's
are.
part of the issue is.
How many boats are we talking?
Well, I mean, isn't this? I mean,
One or
this-
two?
One or two. This is all about stopping abandoned boats.
Right?
That's really what right?
It is.
This is all about not allowing people to park their boats on the shore there and leaving them.
Right.
That's what this is all about.
Yeah, and so once the, but even in the summertime, if it's there more than 30 days and it's not registered as it reads, the boat can be towed out of there.
Yeah, this wasn't necessarily as a revenue collector, it was really to, because the cost of removing abandoned boats is so high.
Right. So, and we can pass that cost on.
That we
How
can,
many-
yes.
How many people moor their boats full-time? In
Yeah.
Cape May waters?
Well, yeah,
In Cape May waters, there's probably only, right now, one boat.
Couple.
And,
but wait,
yeah,
it's not a
usually a
big deal.
couple,
So the registration is going to be 1 or 2 boats?
yes.
but if you go out in the harbor and you take a boat ride out, you go out through the channel to the ocean, you pass by at least 8 boats that are moored.
But they're
Yes.
anchored,
But-
they're temporarily anchored.
Yeah, but
How
not,
do we know that?
well, that's what our,
That's what our
our,
two
our two harbor
harbor
masters
masters are
are,
watching.
yes.
Yeah, because I
mean,
I know
We're
there's
both
lots
members of the yacht club, we see
No,
these
no,
boats all the time.
that's why I
Yes.
asked,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
heard you talking about it earlier, so
Yeah,
I'm like,
so-
let me
so-
get educated. So we're really just talking about
We're not talking about a
couple
lot of
boats?
boats.
A couple of boats,
It's
yeah.
it's a problem. It's 1 or 2 boats.
But
maybe.
you have 1 or 2 boats that are on the shore.
Yeah,
No,
they're,
I do understand that part of
Yeah.
it. I just didn't understand how you could.
not a big- it's
how
not
you
a
could
revenue
moor your
issue.
boat full-time and live on it and not have to pay the
Well,
city anything.
there's one boat that's sunk, right? It's a sunken boat.
More
right
than,
past the
more than
coast.
one.
well, right, there's one, yeah, that's been there for a while. That mast is sticking out, and actually on the other side in Lower Township, there's one right at the, and it's right in front of Canyon Club's bulkhead.
Really?
Yeah, but I mean, it's a navigation hazard. I mean, our kids sell their sailboats around, you know?
The trouble is, that's
I would
Lower
still
Township.
support there
Yeah,
being
it's
a
Lower Township.
registration fee, because there's registration fees for everything else. Why would there not be for that? And it's much harder to get a fee added after.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it can be nominal, but it's really more a matter of, there are city services that are going to have to be utilized to reinforce the registration requirement. So there should be a fee that's associated with it. Now, I know you'd probably have to, I know it's coming up for second reading, so if you added a fee now, you probably have to start the process all over again.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and
no, if it's 1 or 2 boats, it's not that big.
But it is, it's such a small number that nobody will want to administer the whole process.
Thank you.
Yeah, that touches the bigger problem, and we have a harbor master we have 2 now for Cape May's harbor, but the Coast Guard's got a piece of the harbor, and Lower Township has a piece of the
Township,
harbor. There's no harbor master for Cape May Harbor.
No.
No.
But I think Jack and Tom would, if they noticed a boat that was over in Lower Township, I'm sure that they would.
And they expect to meet with Lower Township officials, and they may support, Lower Township may support them doing the same thing for their side of the harbor, so
I think
pretty
there's no
much.
reason for them not to.
You would take advantage of free as
Right.
to, and keeping abandoned boats out of there, it
Out
would
of
make
there.
sense.
Because otherwise they have to,
Anyway, the thing I passed out here, just to close the circle on this, is, I don't know if we ever actually discussed this, did we, or not? Anyway,
what, the city cut of the tavern industry?
yeah,
You mean that how much we're
Yeah.
gaining from the tavern industry?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did talk about
we
this.
did talk about this as
Yeah.
part of our fee package.
Right.
We're going to return to the fee issues too,
Right.
as well. And again, this is, all this was a projection of how much do the liquor licenses pay by the seat, they pay a license by the seat, and they also pay an ABC fee. And our total revenue for our liquor industry, our liquor consumption industry, is $112,000 for the city, for the total. And that comes down to $13 a seat. And if you bought a Venetian Manhattan at the Mad Batter, it would cost you $13. So
What is the Venetian Manhattan?
it's Buffalo Trace bourbon with Cinar. The recipe's right there at the bottom.
CNR.
So this, I think I did this
Up
just
under
to
the booth.
to indicate in relative terms how much the city's getting from each of the seats we have in our bars, and it's the cost of a Venetian Manhattan for the year.
Per year.
Huh?
One a year.
One a year, one Venetian Manhattan a year. That will factor into our discussion of funding the parking issue when we get around to that. As will that piece I just passed out, and we'll talk about that next time. Anything for the good of
So
the
these are
order?
these are the only
Licenses.
locations with licenses
Yeah.
for liquor.
Yeah,
And Marion is the southern mansion,
yeah, that's the Southern Mansion now.
not the mansion itself, but
Okay.
All right?
Thank
Okay,
you, sir. I hope you feel better.
I do, I hope I do too. How's everybody, anything else for the order? No?
No,
And we're gonna have our meetings regularly at the second Thursday of every month.
That's helpful, thank you, sir.
Okay, well, we'll put that on the city website. Okay? Thanks, guys.
And you're going to try to then schedule something with the Realtors?
Yeah, I think we'll put them on another agenda coming up soon.